Hey, listeners, we usually use this podcast feed to deliver all the conversations we have on my live radio show, but today we're sending you a little something extra. WNYC Studios partnered with Theater of War to do what Theater of War usually does on a stage, on the radio instead. And what do? Well, they take pieces of important journalism and present them by having top-tier actors perform readings from the articles and then hold discussions about the reporting, sometimes including the reporter or their subjects, sometimes including the actors, and always including questions and comments from listeners like you. WNYC and Theater of War are partnering on 4 specials along those lines, including the one you're about to hear. So follow WNYC and Theater of War on social media to learn more about past and upcoming programs. And without further ado, here's Theater of War on the radio.
From WNYC in New York, this is Theater of War on the radio. I'm Kai Wright. It's good to be here. This is the third of 4 live specials we're doing, and I'm joined in the studio by Bryan Doerries, who is the artistic director of Theater of War. Bryan, remind us what we are doing together with our listeners in this live special series.
Oh, at Theater of War, we work with incredible actors to perform texts of all kinds, from poetry, plays, to historic documents, to pieces of journalism. And we do that to spark powerful conversations about pressing issues of the present moment. And that's what we're going to do tonight with all of you listening on the radio.
It's exciting stuff. So for tonight's conversation, we're going to focus on an essay that was just recently published in The New Yorker. It was written by one of my favorite writers, Hanif Abdurraqib. And this essay, I think it speaks to a lot of us. It certainly speaks to me, Bryan. It's called Our Longing for Inconvenience. Hanif is writing about our kind of weird relationship to the constant convenience we're promised in a digital world. He thinks, maybe we want a bit more friction in our lives and we might benefit from it. Like maybe there's something to be said for walking down the block to the bodega for that toilet paper instead of ordering it online. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm excited to hear what all of you are going to say in response to this essay, so get ready to listen, and we'll be taking your calls right afterwards. But Bryan, why have we chosen this essay?
When I read Hanif's piece, it made me think about all the ways that the internet and apps and digital media have changed our lives and the way that we relate to each other. I'm Gen X. I think everyone here is Gen X in the studio tonight.
Shout out to Gen X.
Gen Xers all over. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and as someone who still listens to vinyl and writes letters by hand and works on a typewriter from occasion to occasion and tunes into live radio, which is an old medium as well. I do that as strategies for staying present and feeling alive in this world of distraction and instant gratification. So I knew I wanted to hear how listeners would respond to Hanif's essay. For me, it's about attention, this piece, and it's about the tension between our desire for convenience. I mean, like ordering groceries on your phone can be faster than going to the supermarket, or, asking somebody out on a date. It can be just a right swipe on an app. And, the tension between that and the friction of older technologies like Walkmans and VCRs, the pleasure of rewinding a tape, a cassette, holding it in your hand, or the awkward thrill of meeting someone new and putting yourself out there and then falling in love the old-fashioned way. So for all this listening tonight, I want to know more about your relationship to technology and how it's evolved and whether you find yourself longing for inconvenience in this world that's now mediated by phones and constant promise of instant and often frictionless gratification.
Yeah. Okay. So, and who is going to be reading for us tonight?
Well, 2 actors from our company who are with us in the studio tonight. Adepero Aduye, whom you may know from films like 12 Years a Slave and The Big Short, and Jamani Williams, who most of us know as New York City's public advocate. Hey, Adepero and Jamani, it's so great to have you with us here in the studio tonight.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome to be here. I'm thinking about the Knicks a little bit, but I'm here.
Try to stay focused, please.
And yes, in case you missed that, you did hear that right. This is our city's public advocate. You may or may not know that Jamani pursued acting before public service, and he's been working as an actor with Theater War since 2016, which is pretty cool. So, But okay, so write down our phone number, 212-433-WNYC. I'm, of course, going to give it to you again later a bunch of times, but still get it in your head now, because after we listen to the essay, we want to hear from you. Give us a call. And Bryan, one more thing here. What do you want our listeners to think about as they take in this reading and get ready to talk with us?
So as you're listening to the actors perform the essay, I'd love to hear what you think. Did it make you nostalgic for an era other than this one, or remind you of moments where you felt lonely and longed for another time in your life when things seemed simpler or perhaps more authentic? And if so, why? And what do you think you actually were longing for that's missing in your life today?
Well, this is a topic that I imagine a lot of you talk about with your friends. It's a topic I talk about with my friends a lot. I know that it's something that comes up all the time. So text your friends right now. Tell them to tune into the radio or fire up the WNYC app. Let's listen live, then join the conversation. And Bryan, set us up.
The reading's about 15 minutes long, so grab a cup of tea or whatever you need to get comfortable and join me and Kai in listening. Jumaane Williams is going to start things off.
My friend slides the phone across the table between us so that it's just beyond her reach, and insists that she wants to fall in love the old-fashioned way. She has said this many times within the past year, at parties, at group dinners, at a nearly pitch-black dive bar in Brooklyn while a singer performed a serviceable cover of Can't Help Falling in Love, which slotted seamlessly into our own feelings of loneliness and longing. My dear friend is saying it again today over a lunch that neither of us wants to end just yet, because we don't see each other often enough, because she simply cannot look at the face of another person on a screen and decide in a split second whether that person can motivate her to the point of romantic pursuit. When she insists on falling in love the old-fashioned way, I tell her every time that I know what she means. What she's resisting is not only the dating app as a piece of technology, but what the dating app does to the brain, presenting the idea of constant convenience, turning the seeking of an other into an online shopping excursion. And yes, of course, for some people that is exactly the dating app's appeal. My dear friend wants to fall in love the old-fashioned way because her parents met each other reaching for the same item at a market in the 1970s, a story she can rarely get through without crying. And I say that I know what she means because she is talking, at least in part, about sacrificing convenience, even at the expense of instant gratification. It is inconvenient to be a person, floating through the grand and impossible world, significant in your own resplendent garden of hours, but insignificant as a fleck of dust in the greater arc of the universe. It is, in some ways, inconvenient to believe that your one significant life can collide meaningfully with someone else's, someone whom you have to put the work into finding, in the outside world, where people sometimes go to the market, reaching and reaching and reaching.
Recently, I've been spending far too much of my time doing cost-benefit analysis of various inconveniences. I want to embrace minor discomforts if doing so can make me feel even slightly more alive and engaged in the world. For example, I wake up early on a Saturday morning in winter to help my best friend move, which inconveniences the part of me that would maybe like to stay in bed for an extra hour, though the word like is used loosely here, as that time in bed would probably be spent awake, scrolling through bad news on my phone and watching the occasional video of a dog as a chaser. In the moment, as my friend and I put together her son's bed, it feels like simply another task. But almost immediately afterward, I am struck by how beautiful it was to get to share in another milestone in the life of my friend, who I have seen in many apartments and homes before this one, who I have watched grow into a loving parent, the kind who organizes her child's new bedroom on moving day before almost anything else in the new home is put in proper order. To have that as something that will live in my memory is worth whatever mental or emotional friction exists in rising from the comfort of my bed and putting my feet down on the floor. I am not the only one thinking about the upsides of inconvenience, it seems. There is even a term, friction maxing, to describe the trend of people resisting the lulling ease of screens. On a Saturday morning, when I do not have to help a friend move, I am in bed scrolling Instagram. One video features what appears to be an elder millennial saying that he wants the 90s back. He wants a VCR. He wants old school arcade machines that you have to feed with quarters. He wants a Walkman and cassette tapes to put in said Walkman. Perhaps because I linger on this reel for too long, as I continue scrolling, I am served an ad for a new, revamped version of the Sony Walkman, beneath which, in the comments section, people are declaring that the device is exactly what they've been needing.
Pining for Walkmans and VCRs is, of course, an offshoot of a larger obsession with the not-so-distant past. People revel in the nostalgia of 10 or 20 or 30 years ago by digging up old photos and posting them. Photos from birthday parties or career milestones, or from a moment spent sitting under the final sparks of daylight on a beach. For many of us, the year 2016 wasn't exactly ideal. But at least it wasn't this non-ideal time. There was a longing for some previous era, if not actually a desire to return to it. I want my childhood back even if I don't necessarily want to be a child again. In some backward way, this reminds me of Sun Ra, who spent a lifetime insisting that Earth was not the place for him, and that he had to get to an unknown elsewhere, an elsewhere that would be better simply by the virtue of being somewhere else. The yearning for the past often lands us on the somewhat hollow nostalgia of ephemera. If we can't have the 90s back, we can build a life of things that might feel transportive. I have no right to judge, really. I push physical media on anyone who will listen, ranting about the need for hard drives and for ways to store the things you love because one day they may not be accessible on streaming anymore. I have a CD player in my home, a VCR in a closet. But I am also inclined to think about the work that older devices demand of a person compared with the frictionless present day, when we are told that any and all content is at our fingertips. A myth, but a myth that sells. And I can't help but think of the reality that there are many significantly larger and more consequential inconveniences that Americans, plainly, do not have the heart or the stomach for. One example might be the inconvenience caused by a mass political uprising, one that risks the security, safety, and comfort of its participants. I have seen glimpses of people's threshold for that level of friction. I think, for instance, of the summer of 2020, when a protest movement collided with the first COVID summer and people's material needs, at least in my community, weren't being met. And so, for almost a month after being on the streets all day, protesters would go and sew masks at night, or make care packages for elders, or do grocery runs to fill pantries. And many of us did that at the cost of our own sleep, our own time with loved ones at home. Or we did it in betrayal of our desire for inconvenience, ignoring the temptations of the couch and the latest streamable binge. I return to that time specifically because it was the moment in my life that came closest to answering the question, once the world collapses, how will people build another one? The solutions were imperfect. They involved figuring things out as we went. And, of course, the energy of the movement proved unsustainable. Eventually, people could not resist returning to their lives, to routines more comfortable than standing in the streets with the sun glaring in your eyes, squinting up to check the positions of snipers on a roof, or working with cramping fingers, sewing your 10th mask of the night. I understood then that there just weren't enough people willing to surrender what needed to be done. which made the burden that much larger for those who were. The utopia was temporary, its beauty and its small victories whittled away by the scythe of inaction.
When I was young, I had a Walkman far longer than most anyone else I knew. This was in part because my family didn't have a lot of money and updating electronics was a low priority. We had a giant, clunky computer that hardly worked, whereas most of my friends had Segas and Nintendos. My mother wrote on an old typewriter. My two older siblings had grown up in the cassette era, and so every listening device in our home was either a record or a tape player, which meant that not only did I have a Walkman, I had one that had been handed down twice. There were newer models that stopped automatically whenever the machine sensed dead space, allowing you to skip among songs. But with the Walkman I had, skipping a song or going back to the start of a song was a guessing game. If you listened to the same song enough times, you might get good at the timing. But if you listened to as many different tapes as I did, that was nearly impossible. And so you'd stop earlier than you wanted to, or go too far back and end up in the middle of the previous song until eventually you'd get close enough to be satisfied. I learned early lessons in patience and precision using a hand-me-down dual tape deck that I kept in my childhood bedroom. I would wait, sometimes for hours, to hear a song on the radio that I wanted to record onto cassette. I'd be careful to wait until the end of the DJ intro before hitting record, so as to not get it onto tape. And I'd cut out early if the DJ intruded at the song's end. I learned that if I wanted to avoid picking up the harsh click sound of the tape stopping, I could hold down the pause button and then press stop. In both the Walkman and the bedroom tape deck, the cassette's inner spool of tape would sometimes get caught up in the gears of the machine. The remedy was to gently remove the cassette and wind the tape back into the casing with a pencil, lest you destroy your coveted archive of songs, some of which, for all you knew, might not come on the radio again. I remember these moments with some fondness, but when I see people pining for the materials of the 80s and 90s, I don't find myself especially nostalgic for the same. In doing my cost-benefit analysis around Inconvenience, I've started to think about the difference between what the heart desires and what the brain and body can manage. The world that we live in now has not equipped most people for a return to the small and repeated nuisances of past technologies. Yet, at the same time, relentless convenience, or being sold the idea of relentless convenience, warps the brain in ways that can make nostalgic cravings somewhat inevitable. The world feels as if it is moving too fast, sweeping people up in a forward churn that, among other things, aims to make individuality yet another myth. You are told that everything you desire is at your fingertips and that your life is going to be made easier than ever, but at the cost of blending into a monochromatic background, as forgettable as the view from another hotel room in another city that is not your city. In your city, there are new gray mixed-use condos that look dreamed up by a bored, unimaginative child. But people live there and work there and shop there, and they don't have to go outside all that much. You outsource your writing to ChatGPT, and it is easy, but it makes you sound like no one and like everyone. Even if, or especially if, you are someone who yearns for stillness or for the possibility of brushing the hand of a stranger whom you might come to love, this dissonance can prompt a sense of madness and a desperation for ways to access the slowness you hunger for.
I try all the tricks myself. I put my phone in a box and read a book. I attach a hard drive to my TV to watch concert footage from before I was born. I think of when my mother died, of all the people who mourned her because they'd worked at the places she'd frequented. The person at the deli, the person who bagged groceries, the person at the cleaners. This is what I most love to tell others about my mother, that she was kind to the people she encountered in the world with some regularity. She had routines, places she went where people knew her name. I've resolved to never have my own groceries delivered, even though when I go to the grocery store, no one seems especially interested in making eye contact, let alone in speaking. And I don't blame them, because some days I'm not sure that I am either. What makes the madness increasingly incurable is that I want parts of the past that are increasingly incompatible with this iteration of our world. I walk through the grocery store, half smiling, with my hood up. My friend finds a VHS player but can't connect it to any television in his house.
In recalling my friend who wants to fall in love the old-fashioned way and who once sighed in a dark bar while a singer worked through a rendition of Can't Help Falling in Love, I'm reminded that the tune takes its melody from a French love song called Plaisir d'amour, which was originally composed in 1784 by Jean-Paul Egide Martini. If the former is about the inevitability of falling in love, a complete surrender beyond the speaker's control, the latter confronts the pain of romantic love's aftermath. It is skeptical and somewhat cynical, but also beautiful in its frankness. Quote, "The pleasure of love lasts only a moment. The grief of love lasts a lifetime."
Maybe what my pal who insists on finding love the old-fashioned way is saying is that it shouldn't be as frictionless as browsing Amazon from your couch. If you believe, as she does, that the next person you fall in love with could be the last partner you ever pursue, and the last who ever pursues you, then that pursuit should find you thrown fully into the world, eager for the beauty and discomfort of spontaneous human interaction. And I tell her that I mostly agree, though I generally just avoid dating apps because the onslaught of visual information overwhelms me. Still, I understand her desire, because so many of my own desires are detached from the reality of the times we live in. I am still inventing inconvenience in order to bolster my desire to feel alive.
For instance, I hate to sound like a travel diva, but on airplanes, I love a window seat. I have purchased slightly more expensive and significantly more inconvenient flights just so that I can have a window seat. With noise-canceling headphones and a window seat, you can build your own universe. From high enough in the sky, the clouds look like thick cotton being pulled from a deep blue couch. From low enough and at the right hour, descending into the right city, you can see the dark office buildings dappled with occasional lights from windows, and you can imagine who is still there, what is keeping them away from whatever is awaiting them elsewhere. I'm not saying I'm above streaming a show on a plane or buying airplane Wi-Fi just to Google home decor or rare vintage shirts, but it's when tumbling through the sky that I find myself feeling most attached to the vastness of what is below and pondering the increasing impossibility of connection. On a recent flight, my headphones died while I was listening to music, and I was shocked back to life by an immediate and urgent wave of sound from the airplane cabin rushing in, most notably a child wailing and a parent anxiously attempting to provide comfort. It is useful, every now and then, to be dragged from a fantasy and remember that you share a world with other people, some of whom might be confronting the sudden noise of their own discomforts.
That was the essay, Our Longing for Inconvenience, written by author and poet Hanif Abdurraqib. It was performed for us by Jemani Williams and Adepero Oduye, and it was published on April 17th on thenewyorker.com. And now, dear listener, we would like to hear from you. 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. How are you navigating convenience culture? What lengths have you gone to in order to just be present amid all the digital noise to, create some of that friction in your life? What's the upside of falling in love the old-fashioned way as Hanif writes about it? What's the downside of falling in love the old-fashioned way that Hanif writes about? Tell us your story. Call or text us 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692 with your stories of fighting the pull of constant convenience. I'm Kai Wright. This is a live special Theater of War on the radio, and we'll take your calls after a break. Welcome back. This is a live special Theater of War on the radio from WNYC. I'm Kai Wright. I am, by the way, the host of a new podcast from The Guardian called Stateside. I hope you'll go check it out. But I'm also a former member of the WNYC family, and I am so glad to be back with you all tonight. And I'm super eager to hear from you. 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. Call or text us. I'm joined by Bryan Doerries, who is the artistic director of Theater of War. And we just want to hear your stories, your reaction to the essay we just heard. We just listened to the reading of an essay by Hanif Abdurraqib. It was recently published in The New Yorker. And it's about the culture of constant convenience that we live with right now. And, you know, whether that's helping us or maybe it's not helping us so much, you know. In the essay, Hanif tells this story of getting out of bed on a Saturday morning and going to help a friend assemble her son's bed. And instead of, you know, just laying there doing his usual phone scrolling and looking for things to be doomed about, or maybe looking for Knicks scores as the Public Advocate is doing right now while we broadcast. And Hanif wonders, you know, if we introduce some minor inconveniences, minor discomforts in our life, like going to help out a friend, does that make us feel more alive and engaged in the world? So you tell us, what is your experiences? We want to hear about you wrestling with convenience culture right now. Call or text us 212-433-9692. That's 212-433-WNYC. And Bryan, one more reminder to the listeners of like what you really want them to be thinking about as they call us up.
Yeah, well, Hanif Abdurraqib talks about putting his phone in a box and reading books and pushing physical media on anyone who will listen. And I'm curious, what are the lengths you've gone to? How far have you gone in your own attempt to navigate this world of distraction, to be present, to create inconvenience for yourself? What have you done to stay conscious and present with others and yourself?
So there you go. If that's you got something to say about it, call us up, 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. You can call or text. Someone has already texted to say, I mail my bills because I don't want the post office to go out of business. And tell Jemani the Knicks are up by 49 points. Everybody's invested, Jemani. Everybody's invested. Okay, let's go to Dara in Morris County, New Jersey. Dara, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. So what I like to say is I have always debated this conveniency and inconveniencies in the life in my head, and I have made like a conscious choices in doing things and purchasing things in the house. Number one is like when we bought a new washing machine and dryer, those pedestals. I took that out. I'm like, I don't mind sitting down and taking that out. That is giving me some squat exercise.
Yes.
So that's one of that. The other one is I always go out without a phone when I go out for a walk. I have a nice neighborhood, and the circle around the neighborhood takes 45 minutes, and that's my Zen time. I don't want any connections. And that's pretty much that I choose deliberately, that I need this me time. I need to hear the nature. If I have my headphones in, I don't hear the birds. I don't hear anything in the nature, and that's a big disconnect for me. And I have noticed that if I don't have a phone, I feel more fresh. It actually serves the purpose of a walk in the nature.
Gotcha. I was going to ask you why you do all that, Dara, but it's because if you don't have a phone, you feel more fresh. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Let's go to Amy in Brooklyn. Amy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. I loved this piece, and I just happened to have read it today, and I popped on the radio, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm hearing these beautiful voices read it. So thank you. And I just wanted to share how growing food from seed during the pandemic really helped harness my attention. And all of a sudden, I was trying to differentiate between the sprout and weeds, and I had to really focus, and that was feeling different for me because I was also very much connected to my screens and trying to figure out what madness is going on in the world. But growing things from seed really slowed me down and helped me to connect to my senses and helped to make some sense out of the world too.
Amy, I have to tell you that I, for the first time in my life, this spring, am trying to grow things from seed. I have been on a gardening journey. So you have just given me some inspiration to keep going because it's hard.
It is. It requires so much patience. It's definitely not convenient.
Thank you so much for that, Amy. Let's go to Brian in Spring Valley, New Jersey. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hi, Guy. Thanks for taking my call. I have credit cards that are issued by banks, and sometimes, and I don't really like paying them online. I'm just, internet security and all that. So I like to go to the bank and actually pay it in person. And oftentimes when you get there, there's somebody with a tablet walking around going, you could do that at the ATM. You don't have to wait online. And I'm like, yeah, well, you could put the tablet down and open another teller window.
So true.
Same thing with like the checkout at the supermarket. It's like they're standing there to help you if you can't do the self-check. It's like, just open another aisle. I want to talk to somebody. And I have nice conversations with the tellers and the grocery checkout people. It's great.
That really reminds me of that part in Hanif's essay where he talks about how people remembered his mother. They remembered her by the small interactions they had with her every day at the store. And we are losing touch with the importance of those interactions. Even in a place as soulless as a bank, there's an opportunity for connection and to forge relationships that maybe will outlast us and our time on this earth. So thank you for bringing that to us. Really appreciate it, Brian.
We are taking your calls and your texts about, how you wrestle with convenience culture and what lengths you're willing to go to or have gone to in order to just feel present amid all this digital culture. 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. We got a text from somebody who says, oddly, I miss not knowing who was calling on the phone until I picked up. I wish that person would call because I'd like to know why. Because I'm not sure I agree with that one, but Jamani's nodding for sure.
That's the one that just caught my eye.
Yeah.
I don't even remember that time.
You don't? Or listening to the tape of your voice machine.
Yeah, the voice machine.
And deciding whether you're going to answer it or not. Yeah.
Because you wanted to screen those calls that way.
The old analog tape screening.
That's crazy.
All right. Okay, so let's move on. Let's go to Rebecca in Valley Stream. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Hi, can you all hear me?
We sure can.
Yep.
Okay, so I purchased what I thought was an amazing toy for myself, which was a vacuum robot mop, and it worked really well, and I was telling everybody about it, and I was like, oh my God, I don't have to vacuum and mop anymore. And then it stopped working, and I returned it to the company. They returned it back to me, said that they fixed it. They did that. And it took me a really long time to return it and get my money back. And I realized what a piece of garbage it was. I cried when it initially broke because I thought it was very convenient. And then I realized how much I miss my mop, that if it breaks, which it hardly does, I can go to the 99-cent store and get another one. And I miss the smell of Fabuloso on my Sunday morning routine. So now
Don't hear that all the time.
Yes, fabulous.
It is a spiritual. It is a spiritual journey for me. Again, on Sundays, I take an hour to fully sweep and mop my house, and I love the smell. I open my windows, and it kind of lets me talk to myself, listen to something on the radio, and I'm happy to have my mop back and my Fabuloso. Have a great evening, and thank you for this segment.
Thank you, Rebecca. We have a text from Panda, I believe your name is pronounced. I think the biggest problem is how people are treating each other. The moment a relationship or even an interaction doesn't feel seamless or gets uncomfortable, people throw it out. That's our biggest danger of convenience culture. And Panda goes on to say a lot more, but I just wanted to throw that to you, Bryan.
Well, it feels like that relates to that part that Jimani read in the piece where Hanif was talking about the inconvenience of protest movements and what are you willing to give up? And in a relationship, you have to give up things too. And, the things get uncomfortable. And in the world we're living in now, often the impulse is to dispose of relationships, just like we dispose of technologies, like the caller just now, the robotic mop. And what happens when we have a disposable world that also translates from material things to the people around us? And I was struck when Jimani read it because I was thinking about Jimani as someone who's led many protests and often asks the question of people, what are you willing to give up?
Yeah. I had the same thought while I was listening to that.
Yeah, that was the meta part of it.
Let's go to Ezra in Oberlin, Ohio. Ezra, welcome to the show.
Hi, yeah. So I inherited like a mini DV camcorder from my grandfather a couple years back, and I started like shooting home videos essentially on it rather than on my phone. And the ability to interact with my memories in a way that was more intentional and slow compared to the like inundation of all the receipts and screenshots in my camera roll was a way that I wanted to connect to the inconvenience.
That's great. I mean, I feel like that's how I use analog or even older digital technologies. It's just a strategy to use a technology that isn't connected to the internet. And then I can be present with both the technology and my thoughts and the thing I'm doing with that technology. It's kind of startling to hear you talk about your grandfather bequeathing this. It makes those of us in the room for whom that was a normal and easy technology that we all knew feel pretty old. But I'm grateful for the observation. It's great to hear from you in Oberlin, Ohio.
You're listening to Theater of War on the radio, a special from WNYC. We're taking your calls and hearing your stories of navigating convenience culture in this crazy digital moment. What lengths have you gone to in order to be present in spite of all the noise and digital distractions we've got? 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. Give us a call or text us. We'll take a break, and then we'll be back to hear more of your stories. Welcome back. This is Kai Wright, and you are listening to Theater of War on the radio, a special from WNYC. We have actors who have read a story for us that we are inviting you to talk about. It's an essay written by Hanif Abdurraqib, published recently in The New Yorker. And the essay is about what Hanif calls the upsides of inconvenience, what we gain when we add a little friction back into our lives amid all of this digital easiness. Does that resonate with you? Have you gone to some lengths yourself to add friction back into your life? We'd love to hear about it. Call or text us at 212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. I'm joined by Bryan Doerries, who is Artistic Director of Theater of War.
Thanks so much, Kai. Well, we're going to do a thing that we've been trying out in this show called a rewind, where we're going to ask the actors to reread the last page of this essay. It will take a couple minutes, but just to sort of reset the conversation and maybe go a little bit deeper. So I'm going to turn things over to them in just a second, but just to reset, the two themes that come up on this last page are the question of falling in love the old-fashioned way and what it means in the world in which we're now living, and then there's this scene in which Hanif talks about the inconvenience that he revels in on an airplane. And I relate to that. Maybe being on an airplane is the only time where I feel disconnected from the intensity of the digital world that we're all connected to. So I like that he lands us with an airplane in this story. So I'm going to turn things over to Jimani, who's going to kick off this rewind of the last page.
Maybe what my pal who insists on finding love the old-fashioned way is saying is that it shouldn't be as frictionless as browsing Amazon from your couch. If you believe, as she does, that the next person you fall in love with could be the last partner you ever pursue, and the last whoever pursues you, then that pursuit should find you thrown fully into the world, eager for the beauty and discomfort of spontaneous human interaction. And I tell her that I mostly agree, though I generally just avoid dating apps because the onslaught of visual information overwhelms me. Still, I understand her desire, because so many of my own desires are detached from the reality of the times we live in. I am still inventing inconvenience in order to bolster my desire to feel alive.
For instance, I hate to sound like a travel diva, but on airplanes, I love a window seat. I have purchased slightly more expensive and significantly more inconvenient flights just so that I can have a window seat. With noise-canceling headphones and a window seat, you can build your own universe. From high enough in the sky, the clouds look like thick cotton being pulled from a deep blue couch. From low enough and at the right hour, descending into the right city, you can see the dark office buildings dappled with occasional lights from windows, and you can imagine who is still there. What is keeping them away from whatever is awaiting them elsewhere? I'm not saying I'm above streaming a show on a plane or buying airplane Wi-Fi just to Google home decor or rare vintage shirts, but it's when tumbling through the sky that I find myself feeling most attached to the vastness of what is below and pondering the increasing impossibility of connection. On a recent flight, my headphones died while I was listening to music, and I was shocked back to life by an immediate and urgent wave of sound from the airplane cabin rushing in. Most notably, a child wailing and a parent anxiously attempting to provide comfort. It is useful, every now and then, to be dragged from a fantasy and remember that you share a world with other people, some of whom might be confronting the sudden noise of their own discomforts.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jimani and Adepero. And listening to you just now, I was so struck by the end of the piece, about that last paragraph as the plane is landing, or as he's landing us inside the plane, and reflects, it's useful every now and then to be dragged from a fantasy and remember that you share a world with other people, some of whom might be confronting the sudden noise of their own discomforts. And the question I want to ask listeners and callers who are calling in is, how'd that last line of the piece land with you? What did it say to you tonight as you were thinking about and pondering this question of navigating this world of convenience and inventing your own forms of friction to feel alive?
212-433-WNYC. That's 212-433-9692. You can call or text. And let's get back to the calls. Let's go to Bethany in Maplewood, New Jersey. Bethany, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. Thinking about that last line, one of the things that I've been trying to do recently is disengage from feeds as much as possible, whether that's like scrolling through Instagram Reels or YouTube serving me up the next thing. So I would just like prop my phone up while I'm like cooking in the kitchen and scroll. But what I did was I have an old Storm radio and I put it in my kitchen and I listen to the radio when I'm in the kitchen. And there's something about me not being able to like push the conversation faster or forward to something else, but also that piece about feeling connected with all the other listeners and everyone who's like kind of putting on the show that's thinking deeply about these topics. That does make me feel really connected rather than kind of zoning out with what I kind of experience otherwise.
Well, Bethany, you are certainly after my heart as a live call-in radio host. I couldn't agree more. I love this work for exactly that reason. Thank you, Bethany. Let's go to Mike on the Upper West Side. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Big fan of Kai, even bigger fan of the Public Advocate.
Okay,
Mike.
Nice. Thank you so much.
I don't know. I'm a freak. I have a flip phone. I don't have social media. I don't use apps. If I want something from a store, I get up, I go out the door, I get it. There's a world out there. I like to interact with it. I don't walk around staring at a screen. I don't have my headphones on 24/7. If I fall in love because I met someone, I probably met them from work or something I enjoy doing or something in the real world. And guess what? I get along fine. I'm a freak, but I grew up before the internet, so that conditioned me, and I'm fine with it. Go on without me. And you know what? The permanent distraction, hey, maybe that has something to do with who we've got in the White House, because everybody's permanently zoned out.
Well, Mike, you're not a freak. You are living your life, and we thank you for it. We have a text from Donna Smith in White Plains that's also after my heart. I try not to answer the phone if I am with someone. Sometimes people are a little confused when I turn the ringer off. I want to be able to talk to friends and others without being pulled away by someone else. I can always return a phone call later. I love that. I feel the same way. I just do not want to be on the phone when I'm talking to somebody else. Let's go to Zachy in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Zachy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is a great topic. Many years ago, I chose to take my television out of my living area. So I only have a television in my bedroom. So when company comes over, I found people looking around, for years now, looking around my living room, looking for a television, I guess. And I don't have one. I haven't had one for probably close to 15 years now in my living room. So when people come by, like they used to come by, they come by to visit. When you come to visit someone, you want to talk to a person. You don't want to watch television and react to what's on television. So I don't have a television in my living room. I still play my albums. I still play my home stereo, which I love stereo, and music. I never gave up my music systems, in my life. And when I go out to dinner or lunch with someone, I do not take a phone inside with me at all, because I think it's rude to sit there with a phone next to you, with a person across the table from you. I mean, what's more important, the phone or the person you're speaking with?
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's first of all, I love how you took us into your living room. And before the television, there was radio, and before the radio, there was a fireplace, and people used to sit around the fire and talk and exchange and have stories. So I love the idea that you moved the television out of the place where you would convene people so you could connect with them more directly. Thanks for bringing and sharing all that with us tonight. Really appreciate it.
And thanks for referring to sitting and visiting.
I love that.
I love that verb that I don't think gets used enough. That the point here is that we are visiting with one another. Let's go to Alice in the East Village. Alice, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. I feel that my life is inconvenient. I have to go to the laundromat, which I love doing.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those jobs that has a beginning, a middle, and end. It has it's so neat in that way. I hang out with my friends as much as possible, which is very difficult because they're all very busy. I go to things and I try to talk to people. And I don't scroll anymore online. I can't stand it, so I don't do it. I don't scroll for love anymore.
It does feel like we're like living through what's going to be a kind of medical footnote, like this moment of these 25 years post the internet's invention, where our children, all the way to our grandparents, have been completely subsumed in this technology. And I think it's going to look pretty strange. I do think we're kind of awakening the way that you've just described to strategies we might use to be present.
I hope so. There's a new dating app called Snail Letters, and I think that's what it's called. Anyway, I'm sure you can Google it. It's new, and the guy finally wrote me back and said, well, it just turns out that straight men just don't like our site, and we don't have anybody to match you up with because they're just not responding to this snail, slow mail. I remember when you could date you dating on the Village Voice. I still have the letters because some of them were so funny that I got. I put an ad in the Village Voice, and then I got all these letters from people who wanted to meet me.
Or that thing called Misconnections. You remember that, where it was like you were the person on the subway and you had a brown hat and we made eye contact, and
it could get a little spicy.
It could get spicy, but even the notion that we live in a world where filled with chance encounters with other people and that we're sort of awakened to it, and then we yearn and search for them in that way. It's not convenient.
It's one of my greatest myths. It's funny that and thank you, Alice, for bringing that thing up particularly, because when I think about inconveniences I miss, the backs of printed weeklies, The Voice, The Blade, all of these papers where you could read those kinds of personal ads. Just read them for fun, even if you weren't placing one, was really great. We actually have a room full of Gen Xers
yes,
here.
We're dominating the conversation.
And I kind of want to hear if you'll let me, Bryan, what's some of y'all's versions of the inconveniences you missed, or what you'll do to put yourself into a little more inconvenient space?
Well, I just want to say the last example I think got to the heart of this. Like even listening to Alice talking about an app on the phone or computer to try to bring her back to the real world is fantastic. I thought. I'm not even sure. I do try to find some space, but like one of my spaces is riding my bike. But even then, I put on some music. So
all right, well,
and then I had tried at the gym back then. I had an iPod, so I would only use the iPod so I can listen to music. But then iTunes got on your phone, and so now even then that's kind of creeped in. So I think I'm trying to figure out actually how to do better. In my head right now, I'm thinking about this phone in the box, hour time maybe for my family, something like that. I'm gonna try really intentionally now try to see how you can peel away from some of that.
I mean, you got a little bit of excuse given your job.
I think that's true.
We do expect you to be on the clock, and so we demand things from you. So it's not entirely your fault.
Yeah. But I do wonder for the younger generation if they view this as a problem. Like I know we get it and understand why we have two different worlds, but I wonder what they're thinking.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, if there's any younger folks who want to clap back on this, also call us up, 212-433-9692. That's 212-433-WNYC. We've still got time for a few more calls about the ways you do or do not want to give up some convenience culture. Adipera, what about you?
I started carrying around a disposable camera.
Nice.
And yeah, just to kind of be intentional in capturing moments. I think what's so sad is that we have, all of us, so many pictures in our phones that we will never, ever look back at, and people, beyond us will never get to see, oh, this is what, I took in, 2026, because it's just all lost. My mom, she loved pictures, and she made photo albums for each of her children. There's 7 of us. And so now I can always look back and look at albums. And so I'm missing that. But the weird thing is when I went to go, develop the camera, I couldn't remember how to do it. I was like, wait, where do I go? What's the process? So it's getting tuned back to that. But that's my little way.
Remember albums, like albums with pictures in it.
Yeah.
Was a thing.
Absolutely. I sit and read my albums all the time. We have several text messages in the world of books, which is I also love. We've got, I chat with the librarian about books as I pick up my movies and DVDs. No Netflix. Another person who says, our living room, we are now calling it a library.
Nice.
So, they've just fully redone it. And then another person who says, I'm in the middle of redoing our library as a screen-free zone. I found a Bluetooth adapter to connect my cell to a landline so I can put the phone down and still be reachable. But on out-only TV, our TV is hidden by a projector, and I only pull it out for movie nights. So, a lot of stuff around the libraries. Bryan, what about you?
Well, I was thinking about, I still write letters. And now, because no one writes letters anymore, it's like an event to get a letter. Like when you get a letter in the mail or you send a letter, it feels like you're, professing your love, or it's a big moment. But what I love about letters is that even within that technology of handwriting a letter is a strategy for being present and also being conscious. So what I love about letters is you can write the most hateful letter. You can write all the things that you want to say in a letter, but you don't have to send it. You can just put it in the freezer. You can put it in your lockbox. You can never look at it again, or one day you can take it out and say, remember, I felt that way? Or you can put a stamp on it and put it in the mail. And to me, what I like about Hanif's piece is that it's really this is a piece about consciousness. And I love all the things people have been saying, who've been calling in about all the ways that they're fighting for their consciousness in the world in which we live.
Speaking of letters, David in Jackson Heights. David in Jackson Heights says, I get the occasional and random postcard from a cool woman in Pittsburgh, Alabama, which I love.
That's great.
And now I've got a postcard to write. And then John in Sunnyside says, I hail a yellow cab rather than call it Uber. I often do that too, John. I hear you. Let's go to Harry in Elmont, Long Island. Harry, welcome to the show.
Hi there. So I was walking down the streets of New York, and I saw somebody with a T-shirt that said, "I have too many tabs open." I think that's endemic of our time because, if we would just walk instead of run, we would probably appreciate life a little bit more. And there's a term that's going around, and I don't know if anyone's heard it before, but it's called digital obesity. And it has to do with the fact that we're just too tethered to too many different inputs. And it's partly due to the fact that we live in a commercialized world that wants us to buy everything. So we're consumption-oriented, trained to eat everything, but we're not creating much as a result.
You know what, Harry? I'm going to thank you for that and let that be the very last word, because I think that's a great place to stop with us. We are being trained to consume and not to think. Bryan Doerries is Artistic Director of Theater of War. Nice to sit with you and have this kind of conversation again, Bryan. Thanks
Always
so
a
much
pleasure.
for this.
Thanks, Kai.
Thanks to the Donald A. Pell's Charitable Trust for supporting this program. A big thanks to our actors, Adepero Odoye, and Jamani Williams. And I tripped up because I'm trying to tell Jamani that the Knicks are up 103-50. And thanks to all of you for listening to Theater of War on the radio. You can read Hanif Abdurraqib's essay, Our Longing for Inconvenience. It is in its complete form, along with more of his writing at thenewyorker.com. I'm Kai Wright from The Guardian. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.